Hey everybody, Rich from Prep U down here in the bunker, coming to you on a nice rainy day here in outside Chicago. Um, the other day I was thinking about how a lot of my videos seem like it was all information for the individual. And in actuality, when we're prepping and when we're talking about survival stuff, the last thing you want to do is be on your own. The best thing to do is be in a group. And I was thinking about that, and all of a sudden the word pod came up to me. I know pod has some strange connotations in sci-fi movies, but I was thinking more of like orca or the killer whale and their pods, and I started thinking about that, and so I looked it up, and a pod of orcas, which is what they're called, um, sometimes runs between 5 and 30 individual whales and can be up to 100 or more whales together. And I started thinking about that. Well, why do they do that? Why do they group up like that? Well, obviously, the first thing is to protect their young. They keep them normally in the middle of the pod. But it's great for hunting purposes. They really use that to be able to wear down their prey and take them, which is normally much bigger whales. The orca is very good at the group kill, shall we say. And they also do it for community. I mean, they're together and they're able to, wherever they're at, um, their group is cohesive and stays together. So I started thinking about that with what we do and how that works in the prepping community or the survival community. So I put together a few thoughts here for you guys to think about, because this is what you might like to do. But first, let's look at circle of influences. A lot of us have different influences in our lives. I know we've talked about Maslow's hierarchy of needs in earlier videos, and about safety and security and food and love and all that kind of stuff. Don't worry, I'm not going to get into the love thing. We'll leave that for the flower kids. But the circle of influence, and when you think about it, you have your family, which is basically your household. You have your expanded family, and I consider your expanded family like if you have kids and they get married, their husbands or wives or significant others and their children become your expanded family. Then you have your extended family, which is blood. Um, then you have your friends, which could become from the neighborhood, work, school, extracurricular activities that you do. Then you have acquaintances beyond that, and those are just people you would say hi to, maybe hold a brief conversation. You don't really get into, hey, how are the kids, this and that. Oh, I had surgery the other day and all that kind of stuff. It's just, niceties you have. And then beyond that, you have the strangers that are out there. You have no clue, and obviously some strangers may become, you know, expanded family at one point. Well, they all do, really. But within those groups, I mean, your family, expanded family, extended family, it's very limited movement. Once they're there, they're there, especially blood. Blood is blood. That's just the way it is, whether you like them or not. And then the friends, acquaintances, and strangers, there's constant movement back and forth, which will also happen in your prepper community, will also happen in your survival group. But I just put down some notes, and like I said, it came down to pods and stuff like that. But we'll talking about prepping first. These are just some definitions I threw together to think about. A prepping group is like-minded individuals with a specific task using group think to accomplish that task. They could be local or nationwide, and that's what's nice about the internet. I mean, you can talk to people about how to prep, what to prep, specific to your region or where you're, if you have to bug out, where you're bugging out to, what do you need? They can also tell you how to store and stuff like that. And then you're prepping pod, which is obviously small group, close enough to meet and help each other accomplish the goal of stockpiling supplies and close enough to share supplies in cases of emergency. Be it long-term shelter in place, one person or family supplies are destroyed or compromised, which in a disaster that's going to happen, and it could happen to you. So it's not a bad idea to have a small group or a pod of people that like-minded people that are preppers. So you also want to help each other, many times hands-on, to accomplish everyone's goals. And it can be separate or a single location where you meet or where you store your stuff. But you have to remember each member must trust the others. Trust goes a long way with a lot of this stuff. You don't want to get people in your group that you don't trust. Obviously, that's not going to work out. Prepper group dynamics and characteristics, they're all like-minded, share the basic goals. The degrees may vary depending on where you live. You live out in the middle of nowhere, you may have to stockpile all kinds of food. If you live in the city, you may not have the room to store it. You also have access to other food. So again, going back to where your surroundings, you might be able to pick it up at a moment's notice. We all know about the snowstorms that are coming or stuff like that people run out and there's no bread in the stores anymore. You know, how much stuff to get. You all may have different ways to accomplish the goal, but your goal is, you know, survival for your family or your group or whatever. We can all take different roads from point A to point B. It's not how you get there, it's just the fact that you get there. Your skill sets may vary, which really isn't that important. When I talk about skill sets, I'm talking about, you know, what you do for a living, what you know, your level of prepping. You know, you're helping people that maybe are just starting out. You don't have to meet. Like I said, the internet, you just discuss, you just talk about different stuff. Where's the greatest place to get it? Who's got triple coupons this week, you know? And it could be, you know, your group could be local, regional, or nationwide. When we get down to the survival group or pod, I think it's a little bit more important that we're a little bit more specific or local. Survival group, this is what I put together. Like-minded people with different skills formed for a specific purpose, maybe local or across the state or nation. The skills with different skills will come a little bit later. I think you're probably kind of got an idea in the back of your head why. Survival pod, a smaller group close enough to get together to meet and gather at a moment's notice to shelter, or basically to bug out. Their survival groups is bug out, and the safety, you know, at a moment's notice to bug out in safety from a specific assembly point. Sorry about that. And what we're talking about there is, you know, you may be from different locations, but you can have a specific location. You know you're bugging out. You're leaving. All right? Shelter in place is over with. You're going to get together, and that pod is going to be grouped together, be it in cars, or if you can't drive, you're walking, but you're in a safety group of that survival pod. And, you know, the survival pod's dynamics and characteristics, I mean, again, you're like-minded. You have the same concerns and goals in various skill sets. Now, this is where it becomes really important to have various skill sets. If you have a survival pod that's all carpenters or all doctors or all, you know, let's say carpenters or all firemen, you know, that's great. You all know one skill, but you kind of want to have different skills if, you know, if it's really, you know, hitting the fan and you're going out and you're starting all over again, you want to have people with different skills in your group. It's just, you know, very important. Although it wouldn't be bad to have a whole bunch of different kind of doctors. And now, forget the doctors, paramedics are much better. But anyhow, close enough to meet on a regular basis, and this is to train and hands-on. And the training is important. You have to know each person's level of expertise or skill. You have to, you know, encourage each person to stay healthy and to get the proper equipment that they need for their family and on an individual basis. These people need to be willing to share ideas, methods, and supplies if needed. And when we say, you know, share supplies if needed, maybe somebody doesn't have enough of one thing or another. You're a group, you're a pod, you're going to help each other out just like the orcas would. Willing to organize with and trust others to distribute group gear. When we talk about group gear, I mean, some people might not have the concept. Some people have never been in the Boy Scouts or gone to Philmont. There's something called a shakeout. When we get to Philmont for 2 weeks or more of camping, everybody brings their gear. There's a Philmont list, which I suggest you go to PhilmontScoutRanch.com if you want a great bug out list. It's really a good place to go. But when you get to Philmont, everybody gets together, and you have the person that starts you out on your hike. He's with you for like 2 or 3 days, but it's called a shakeout because everybody doesn't need to have a stove. Everybody doesn't need to have cooking utensils, and doesn't everybody. So what you do is you start sharing that stuff, and what that does is it gets rid of that, like they say, an ounce in the morning is a pound by night of backpack weight, and it's going to give you more room for food and other things to take with you, which is really important. So that's what I mean by sharing stuff. You only, you have a group of say 10 people, you only need 3 or 4 stoves. Somebody else can carry the gas, and then you don't need. Everyone needs their own utensils and pot or serving platter and Sierra cup, but you don't need a bunch of other stuff. That's why you have the shakeout at Philmont, and that's what I mean by distribute group gear. But obviously, you do want to have backups because I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, what if somebody can't make it? What if some group is taken out or their gear is destroyed? You do want to have, especially the important stuff, you want to have backups on that. So you may be carrying a little bit more, but then you may want to have a larger group. You all want to have basically the same survival tactics specifically geared to your region. If you're in the mountains, you don't want to have some people from the flatlanders that don't understand the type of gear you have or don't have the type of gear you have. You also want to know where you're going. As a group, you want to talk about that. Where are you heading long before it happens? You also have to have a group that's willing to accept the hierarchy of that group, and that's why it's important to meet early and often. So, you can see the dynamics and how everything's working out. To see if there's somebody that isn't compatible, and it's much better to find out in training than it is when you're bugging out and it isn't working. Not that there aren't going to be issues along the way. And again, you must trust each member. I mean, that's just basically very important. There has to be, a lot of trust. That's about it, but so just some final thoughts on this. I mean, both groups can be interchangeable or combined. Your prepper group could still be your survival group or your pod, or not. Maybe they're from, Utah and you're from Georgia, and there's no way that you're going to get together, although you could have a common destination in between where you get together to a new shelter-in-place area, shall I say. You do not, you don't have to be associated with each other. You can do this on your own, or your family, individual or just a family alone. But, again, it's safety in numbers. You want to be with people that have your back. You can't, with multiple people together in groups, I mean, you're basically protecting each other. One can sleep, one can guard. Let's think back to safety in numbers with the Orca or the military. The military used to have a ad campaign, Army of One. Yeah, that was you, but you were then put in the mix and you became a greater Army of One, the U.S. military. And don't forget, Rick Grimes never did it alone. Well, he did in the beginning, if you remember way back to the early shows where he woke up and he was on his own, but he got together with the group, and even you could see the safety working out in a TV show. So just some thoughts that came to my mind the other day about the whole pod thing, and I thought I'd just share it with you to think about. What you need to do when you're prepping is get other people out there. They could be at your gun club, or they could be your fishing buddies or whatever that are out there, and they have some idea about survival and having supplies in their home and sheltering in place and bugging out. But that's it. I mean, so run with it, people. See what you think, and that's what I'm here for. Just to try to help you guys, gals, put your head together and for the greater good of your family. So that's about it for this video. As always, please subscribe. We really love our subscribers. We're getting more and more every day. That's really cool. Thank you very much. If you like this video, like it. And look at some of our other videos if you haven't seen them before. And please comment. I don't always get back on the comments right away, and I apologize for that. But I will. So, for now, like I always say, be aware of your surroundings. Be prepared to be on your own for up to 72 hours and prep like your life depends on it, because we all know it really does.